Hey readers! Now we are going to read a book called A Piglet Named Mercy by Kate DiCamillo. This book is going to introduce us to the character Mercy Watson. This story is about Mr. and Mrs. Watson. Mr. and Mrs. Watson lead ordinary lives until one day they get a very unexpected surprise on their doorstep. Let's read to find out what makes their lives a bit less ordinary. As we read today, we're going to pay close attention to the characters and their feelings. We will also be on the lookout for words we don't know. A Piglet Named Mercy by Kate DiCamillo, illustrated by Chris Van Dusen. Mr. and Mrs. Watson lived in a house on Deckawoo Drive. Deckawoo Drive was an ordinary street in an ordinary town. And Mr. and Mrs. Watson were ordinary people who did ordinary things in ordinary ways. So far, I have read the word ordinary a few times, and I don't really know what that word means. I'm going to try to solve this using a strategy I know. I'm going to check the pictures to see if they help me. I can see in the picture that Mrs. Watson is vacuuming, Mr. Watson's washing his car, trimming the hedges. So they're doing housework and yard work. Those are all very normal things. I wonder if that's what ordinary means. Normal, everyday stuff. One day, Mrs. Watson said to Mr. Watson, "I wonder if we aren't just the tiniest bit too predictable." "Predictable? Us?" said Mr. Watson. "Surely not." "It's just that sometimes I wish something different would happen," said Mrs. Watson. "Things are just fine as they are," said Mr. Watson. Mr. and Mrs. Watson are our main characters so far in the story. How would you describe these two characters? Turn and tell your buddy. Good job, readers. Did you say Mr. Watson likes their ordinary life? He's happy. Mrs. Watson wants something different to happen. Maybe she's not as happy. But then something different did happen. Oh, a pig is falling out of the truck. Caution, pigs. Molson's Pig Transport. Someone very small and not at all ordinary found her way to the Watsons' house on Deckawoo Drive. The text says that someone very small and not at all ordinary went to the Watsons' house. Who was it? Who made their way to the Watsons' house? How do you know? Turn and tell your buddy. Good job, readers. Did you say it was the pig? Because we saw the pig falling out of the truck. There's the truck. And it's right here on the street, right in front of the Watsons' house. And it shows in the picture the pig walking towards the Watsons' front porch. Mr. Watson made the discovery when he opened the door for the morning paper. "Mrs. Watson," he called, "come see." "Oh, the little dear," said Mrs. Watson. "Oink," said the piglet. "I think she's hungry," said Mr. Watson. "Is that a pig?" said Eugenia Lincoln. Eugenia Lincoln lived next door, and she did not approve of surprises or pigs. "It is," said Mrs. Watson. "Can you believe our luck?" "Don't be ridiculous," said Eugenia Lincoln. "A pig is not lucky at all." "Do you think perhaps the piglet would like a bottle of warm milk?" said Baby Lincoln. Baby was Eugenia's younger sister, and she was fond of surprises and piglets. Mr. Watson scratched his head. "A bottle of milk? I don't know. This is all so unpredictable." Leave it to me, said Baby Lincoln. Oink, said the piglet again. Mrs. Watson picked up the piglet and took her inside. She wrapped her in a blanket. Have you ever seen anyone so darling? She said. Never, said Mr. Watson. Now we've met some new characters. We've met Eugenia and Baby Lincoln, who both live next door. As we meet new characters in stories, it is important to think about how the characters act and feel. Of all our characters, which ones are excited about the new little piglet? Turn and tell your buddy. Good job, readers. Did you say Mr. and Mrs. Watson and Baby Lincoln? Here is the warm milk, said Baby Lincoln. I have it right here. Eugenia said, this is absurd. The piglet did not think it was absurd at all. She drank the entire bottle. Aww. In this sentence, the piglet did not think it was absurd at all. She drank the entire bottle. What do you think the word absurd means? Turn and tell your buddy. Good job, readers. Did you say ridiculous? Silly? And then she burped and oinked and went looking for more. Oh my goodness, said Mr. Watson. Watch out, said Eugenia. She seems to like toast very much, said Baby. Oh, the darling, darling thing, said Mrs. Watson. Look at the picture. Which part of the text can you see in the picture? Turn and tell your buddy. Good job, readers. Did you say the illustrator is showing that the piglet ran very quickly to the toaster? That's the part of the text that the picture is showing. She seems to like toast very much. Mr. Watson, said Mrs. Watson, perhaps you would like to hold her for a bit. Certainly, said Mr. Watson. He took the piglet in his arms. He rocked her. He hummed. How extraordinary, said Mr. Watson. She is a porcine wonder. This piglet is a wish come true, said Mrs. Watson. What a mercy she is, said Baby. There you go, said Mr. Watson. We will call her Mercy. She is not a mercy, said Eugenia. She is a pig. Oink, oink, said the piglet. You cannot name a pig Mercy, shouted Eugenia. But they did name her Mercy. She was entirely unpredictable. She was not at all ordinary, and she was very, very loved. All right, readers. So we talked about how Mr. and Mrs. Watson felt about their lives at the beginning of the story. We talked about how Mr. Watson liked their ordinary lives, but Mrs. Watson wanted something different to happen in their lives. How do Mr. and Mrs. Watson feel about their lives at the end of the story? And what changed at the end of the story to make them feel differently? Turn and tell your buddy. Good job, readers. Did you say they were both very, very happy that Mercy, the piglet, came into their lives? Mr. Watson didn't know he needed anything different. Mrs. Watson wanted something different. But they both felt very happy that Mercy the piglet came into their lives. And they were happy and fulfilled at the end of the story. So remember, readers, today and every day as you read fiction books, you can think about the characters and their feelings. You can also look for words that you don't know, and you can use your good reading strategies to figure out what the unknown words mean.